right, let's just jump right in. Have you ever felt like you've just hit a wall with your fitness routine? You're putting in the work, but nothing's changing? Well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to unlock a powerhouse technique that the pros use to absolutely shatter those plateaus. We're talking about the Superset. This is all about completely transforming your workouts to get maximum results.
So, does this sound familiar? You're spending more and more time at the gym, your sessions feel like they're dragging on, but the progress? It's just not matching up with the effort you're putting in. And that can be so frustrating. But what if I told you there's a way to get more done in less time and actually see better results? Yeah, it's possible.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll talk about hitting that wall, that fitness plateau. Then, we'll introduce the Superset as the perfect solution. After that, we'll break down the 3 main types you need to know, see how they actually work in practice, and finally, and this is super important, we'll go over the common mistakes you absolutely want to avoid.
We have all been there. It's that point where your body just gets comfortable. It's adapted to your routine. The same workouts that used to kick your butt now feel kind of stagnant, right? And the changes you were seeing in the mirror have slowed to a crawl. This, my friends, is the classic fitness plateau. And it is probably the #1 reason people lose motivation and give up. But here's the thing. What if the answer wasn't more time, but more intensity? That is exactly where supersets come in. And this isn't just some random gym hack. It's a really strategic method to crank up the density and the intensity of your workout. You're basically forcing your muscles to adapt and grow in a totally new way. It's the definition of working smarter, not longer. So what in the world is a superset? Honestly, it's beautifully simple. You do a set of one exercise, and then, with almost no rest, you immediately jump into a set of a second, different exercise. The key words here, and I really want you to remember these, are back-to-back and minimal rest. That's the secret sauce right there. Okay, but here's where it gets interesting. Not all supersets are created equal. No. Depending on your goals, you can actually structure them in a few different ways. And knowing these options, well, it lets you tailor your workout for some really specific results, whether you're chasing muscle growth, better endurance, or just an absolutely incredible pump. So let's break down the 3 main strategies. First up, we have the antagonist superset. This is where you pair opposite muscle groups. Think biceps and triceps. It's super efficient because while one muscle is working, its opposite is resting and stretching, which lets you move some serious weight. Then you've got the agonist superset. This is the opposite idea. You hit the same muscle with 2 different exercises back to back, like a bench press right into push-ups. The goal here is to just completely exhaust those muscle fibers for maximum growth. And finally, we have the compound superset. This one's a beast. You pair 2 big multi-joint movements, like squats and lunges, for a massive metabolic and strength challenge. It's tough, but wow, the results. All right, enough theory. Let's make this real. Let's walk through what a superset actually looks like and, more importantly, feels like in the middle of a workout. For our example, we'll use that classic antagonist pairing for arms. Okay, so here's the flow. Imagine this. You pick up your dumbbells and you perform a full, controlled set of 12 bicep curls. Now, the second you finish that 12th rep, you don't stop, you don't drop the weights and check your phone or wander over to the water fountain. No. You immediately switch gears and knock out 12 reps of tricep extensions. You just go. And this brings us to the golden rule, the most important part of this whole thing. That transition time between the first and second exercise, it has to be minimal. We're talking ideally under 30 seconds. This is the non-negotiable part. It's what keeps your heart rate jacked up and maintains that high level of intensity that's going to drive those results you want. So why put yourself through all this? Well, the payoff is huge. First off, you're basically doing 2 exercises in the time it would normally take to do just one, plus its rest period. So right away, you're saving a ton of valuable time in the gym. Second, by cutting out most of that rest, you are just skyrocketing the intensity of your workout. And what does that increased intensity do? It means your body is working way harder and burning calories at a much faster rate. Now look, this is a really powerful technique, but with great power, you know the rest. You've got to be smart and safe. Pushing your limits is the goal for sure, but not at the cost of getting injured. So let's talk about the common pitfalls you need to sidestep.
Let's break these down because they're super important. First, check your ego at the door. When you're getting tired, your form is the first thing to go. So using a weight that's a little lighter than you normally would is actually the smart play here. Second, while the rest is minimal between the two exercises, you should still take a proper rest after the entire superset is done. Don't just jump right back into the next one with no break at all. And finally, and I can't stress this enough, never skip your warm-up. Supersets are demanding, and jumping in cold is just asking for a muscle strain or an injury. So there you have it. You now know what a superset is. You know the different types, and you know how to do them safely and effectively. The only question left is, what are you going to do with this? Which one will you try first in your next workout? Are you going to go for that antagonist arm pump, or maybe an agonist set to totally finish off your chest day? Or maybe, just maybe, you're going to brave a compound superset on leg day. The choice is yours. Now go get after it.
All right, let's dive into a training technique that is an absolute game changer. We're talking about a method designed to completely shatter your limits and kick your muscle growth into high gear.
So let's talk about something I'm sure we've all felt at some point. That moment you feel like you're just spinning your wheels in the gym.
You know the feeling, right? You're showing up, you're consistent, you're pushing hard every single session. You feel like you're doing everything by the book, but the scale isn't moving, the weights aren't going up. It's honestly one of the most maddening things in fitness.
Well, that wall you've hit, it has a name. It's called a training plateau. It's basically your body's way of saying, hey, I'm used to this now. This doesn't challenge me anymore. But what if I told you there's a way to take a sledgehammer to that wall?
And that brings us to the star of today's show, the Dropset. Now, this is an advanced technique for sure, but once you get the hang of it, oh man, it can totally transform your workouts. So what is a Dropset exactly? Think of it as one giant extended set. You take an exercise all the way to the absolute limit, that point where you just can't squeeze out another rep. And then, here's the magic, you immediately drop the weight and you keep going. It's all about pushing past that point where your brain is screaming at you to stop.
Now, I know it sounds super intense, and believe me, it is. But how you actually do it is pretty simple. Let's walk through it step by step.
Okay, here's the breakdown. First, pick your exercise. Let's say you're doing bicep curls. You curl until you physically cannot lift that weight again with good form. That's failure. Now here's the most important part. You immediately drop the weight. We're not talking about taking a breather or checking your phone. Right away, you grab a lighter set of dumbbells and you go to failure again. You can repeat that whole process 2, maybe 3 times to complete one single absolutely killer drop set.
So, the big question is, how much weight do you drop? This is so important. The sweet spot is right around a 10 to 20% reduction. See, that's just enough to let you crank out a few more solid reps without making it so light that you lose all the intensity. Nailing this percentage is really what makes the whole thing work.
Okay, so we've got the what and the how covered. But what about the why? Why is this technique so incredibly effective at building muscle and just obliterating those plateaus? Let's get into the science just a little bit.
It really boils down to 3 huge benefits. First, you get incredible muscle hypertrophy. By going way beyond what your muscles are used to, you're basically forcing them to adapt and grow. Second, you're massively increasing the muscle's time under tension, which is a huge factor for building both strength and endurance. And finally, and this is the big one for plateaus, you're hitting your body with a totally new kind of shock, a stimulus it's just not ready for, which forces it to get stronger.
Now, because this is such an intense technique, you have got to be smart about using it. Think of it like a superpower. You don't use it all the time, only when it's going to have the biggest impact. It's all about strategy. Okay, so listen up. This is crucial. You want to use drop sets sparingly. They're perfect as a finisher on the very last set of an exercise, maybe once or twice a week for any given muscle. What you absolutely do not want to do is start doing drop sets for every single exercise in your workout. That's just a one-way ticket to burnout and overtraining. Mix them into your normal routine. Don't make them your only routine. And this quote right here says it all, doesn't it? You break the muscle down in the gym, that's the signal. But the actual growth, the repair that makes you stronger, that all happens when you're resting. And when you're using a tool as demanding as drop sets, your recovery, your nutrition, your sleep, all of it becomes 10 times more important. So, you see, a drop set isn't just about lifting heavy. It's a strategic weapon you can pull out to fight against stagnation. When you use it the right way, it is one of the absolute best tools for pushing past your limits and sparking some serious new growth. So the only question left is, Are you ready to break through?
All right, let's talk about absolutely shattering those workout limits. Today, we're diving deep into 2 killer techniques the pros use to do just that: supersets and dropsets. If you're ready to crank up the intensity, you are in the right place. Let's get into it.
So, have you ever hit that wall? You know what I'm talking about. You're in the gym, you're putting in the work, you're consistent, but nothing's happening. The numbers on the bar aren't budging, you're not seeing the growth you want. Man, that workout plateau is one of the most frustrating things ever, right?
But here's the good news. There is a way to smash right through that wall. See, the pros don't just try to lift heavier all the time. They train smarter. And a huge part of that is strategically jacking up the intensity. Today, we're going to break down 2 of their favorite secret weapons for doing just that.
Okay, first up, the Superset. This is a classic for a really good reason. It's an incredible tool for packing way more work into less time. We're talking about serious workout density here.
Now, the idea itself is pretty simple, but the effect? Whoa, it's powerful. The absolute key, the #1 rule you have to follow is no rest. You finish that last rep of exercise 1 and boom, you are straight into the first rep of exercise 2. It's this relentless pace that just keeps those muscles under tension and firing.
So you can really do supersets in 2 main ways. First, you can hit opposing muscles. Think bicep curls right into tricep extensions. This is super efficient because while your biceps are working, your triceps get a little breather, an active recovery. Or you can go the other way and hammer the same muscle group back to back, like a heavy bench press followed immediately by dumbbell flies. Now that's not about saving time, that's all about chasing a massive pump and pushing that one muscle to its absolute limit.
So look, supersets are awesome. Drop sets are brutal. But what happens when you put them together? Well, you get the ultimate shock to your system. This is how you force your muscles to wake up and grow. Let me show you how it works.
Okay, let's just walk through a real-world example. You'd start with a superset. You do a heavy set of bicep curls. Then, with 0 rest, you jump right into tricep extensions. But wait, instead of taking a break, here's the twist. You immediately go back to the bicep curls, but you grab a lighter weight, and you just rep it out until you have absolutely nothing left in the tank. See? You're getting the efficiency of the superset with the raw intensity of the drop set.
And that right there is the whole point of advanced training. It's not just about adding more plates to the bar every single week. It's about creating this crazy, unique stimulus that your body has never felt before. It's the kind of shock that basically tells your muscles, hey, you have no choice but to adapt and get stronger.
Okay, hold on. Before you get all fired up and race off to the gym, we really need to pump the brakes for a second. We have to have a serious talk because this kind of intensity, it comes with a big flashing warning sign.
And I really cannot stress this enough. This is for advanced trainees only. I'm serious. If you haven't been training consistently and properly for at least a couple of years, this is not for you. Not yet, anyway. You've got to build that solid foundation first.
And it's so important to understand why. First, the risk of overtraining is huge. You absolutely have to maintain perfect form when you're completely exhausted. And that's exactly when injuries love to happen. Plus, it puts a ton of stress on your entire central nervous system, and honestly, you need a really strong mind-muscle connection for it to even be effective.
All right, so now that we've covered that super important warning, let's talk about how you can actually put this knowledge into action safely and effectively, of course.
So I've got a question for you. Which one are you thinking about trying first? Are you going to maybe throw in some supersets to boost your workout efficiency, get more done in less time? Or are you feeling brave and want to challenge yourself with a brutal drop set on the last set of an exercise? Think about your routine right now. Where could one of these give you that critical edge you're looking for?
Because at the end of the day, that's what this all comes down to. There's no single magic technique that's going to solve everything. It's the combination of your consistent, hard work, day in and day out, plus training intelligently with methods just like these. That is the unbeatable formula for real results.